Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Retropower Uncut. And we start over here with Project Utah, MK2 Jaguar, and the Project Vader Chevette. So we'll start with the Utah Jag. A little bit more progress been made on that, with various parts arriving from subcontract operations. So we've been able to, James has been able to gather a few of those bits together, working on the centre console, which long-term viewers will remember is made up of a number of pieces, various billet parts and various hydro dip parts and some trim parts. And a number of switches and a panel for the switches and various other things. So James has been pulling all those parts together and doing some of the final finishing work on those. Bruce Holder laser etched the script into the switches for us a little while back. We got those back. We did a couple of sets just so that we've got a backup option in case something goes wrong. We wanted to pick out the detail on the switches with white pen. I'm trying to think what they're called now. We call them chicken head switches because they look a bit like a chicken's head. That's right. The chicken head switches. The script that's in the top of those switches is picked out in white pen, and James has just been doing that, dropping the paint into them and then wiping them off and then repolishing the switches so that they can all go in, and getting that panel ready, and then getting all the centre console trial assembled again. It's been done many times, but trial assembled again, and then trial assembling all the switches in. He's done the subloom, so all that lot could go together. So that's now had a final trial assembly, and that's actually all now ready to go in the car, which is nice because that's going to really set the interior off a treat. So we're pretty much ready to go on that. At the moment, he's had to drop off that to do some other jobs as well, and we're kind of juggling it. We've got a lot of balls in the air at the moment, so he's gone off to juggle another one. So that's where we're at with Utah. Moving on then, we've got the Chevette, which you saw last week on the rolling road on the dyno. That was nice to see. It made some nice noises. Yeah, we're really happy with that. The peak power was probably a little bit less than we thought. There was a couple of complications there. The major one being, as Carl said, that we weren't running on. Is it 98 octane or 99 octane? Whatever the higher octane pump fuel is, we weren't running on that because the concern was that we want it to be able to fill up wherever. So it was running on the lower octane unleaded, which did drop the power a bit more than we thought it would actually. It wouldn't take nearly as much ignition advance as we thought it would. So we'll have a second go at that, and we'll run switchable maps on it so it can be switched to run on lower octane or higher octane. Then we've got a win-win out of that one. So that's fine. Scott's been doing some bits on this. He has been. I need to consult my little list because I've actually forgotten what he was doing. Yes. Separate to that, George has drawn up some door pulls. We're doing billet door pulls for the interior door handles on the doors on this. They've been drawn and machined and have now come back, and then they've gone off again today, off to the anodizers, because we've just done another black anodizing run. They've gone up to the anodizers to be anodized black. So they're progressing okay. The rear lights, of course, yeah, I'm having to look at my list because there's a lot going on and there's things I haven't been involved with. Yeah, the rear lights, we got the rear lights back on the previous batch of anodizing. They, again, long-term viewers will remember, we drew those up on CAD, had them machined from billet aluminium. Then the aluminium billet's they were trial assembled, then the aluminium billet has been anodized black, and we've had black, we've done black perspex covers for those, and then the light units are fitted inside there, and the covers are screwed on, and they've been fitted to the back of the car, and that's all exactly as we'd hoped. The screws that hold all that lot together are currently stainless steel. There is another set of screws which are being Xylan coated. We're starting to use Xylan coating on quite a few items. They're being Xylan coated black at the moment. Another set of screws for those. So then, and the body screws and various other things. So they'll all be black on the finished article. But at the moment they're at East Midlands Coatings being Xylan coated black. So that's with that. And then Scott's also been busy putting on Dynamat in a few places as well. There were various places that had been done. He's been putting some Dynamat on the back of some of the carbon panels just to take a bit of resonance out of them, because some of them do have a little bit of a resonance to them. And a couple of areas where we hadn't put Dynamat, where he's just been adding Dynamat in there. And I think that probably covers most of what we've done on the Chevette. We're certainly getting towards the final final parts of this. There's still things to do. We've still got the front light surrounds to be machined, finalised and then machined. There's various bits to do. We need to address an actual breather issue that came up on the rollers, so we're going to be doing that. There's still plenty to do, but we're getting through this quite well now. So yeah, good progress. And then out of camera shot, we won't bother going around to it because it's not a hugely remarkable progress on the RS2000, but the yellow Escort RS2000 that you'll have seen on previous videos, we've done a little bit more work on that, just finalising the gearbox conversion, sorting out the spacers to move the gearbox mounting centre line back, some aluminium blocks with some little spacer pieces TIG welded onto the tops of them so that we don't lose the return flange on the original gearbox mount. We've done it that way. It's not the most elegant piece of engineering, I'll be the first to say, but we don't want to cut the car around. The neat way to do it would be to move the mounts in the tunnel back so they're in the right place. I don't want to do that because we want to keep the heritage of the car. Again, if you've not seen or heard me talk about the car before, it's, I would say, probably unique, and it's certainly approaching unique in that it has had one owner from new, and it's never, until recently, until it was rebuilt, it hadn't been used as a road car. So that's a pretty unique thing for an RS2000. I doubt there's another one like that. So we don't really want to cut the shell around just to put a 5-speed gearbox in it. So that's why we've done it that way. It's perfectly adequate anyway. It does the job nicely. It's just not the most elegant solution if you were starting with a bare shell that wasn't completely original and wasn't one owner from new. So that's why we're doing that, and that's where we're at on the RS2000. Just checking my list again because I'm forgetting lots of things. Also moving on behind the camera, out of camera shot, it's under a cover, so there's no point me pointing at it really. We've done a few little bits on the Lancia Stratos. Everybody asks what's happening with the Stratos. In the background, ticking along, George has been pedalling his CAD station hard and has drawn up some more parts for that because there were various bits we needed. The gear knob for one thing, I need to check my list because I've forgotten. Yeah, gear lever, window winder and door handles, all of which needed designing and making. They've all been designed. George has designed all of those, and then I've forgotten the company's name. I've forgotten his name now. Concept 303, isn't it? And Andy at Concept 303. Yeah, Andy Parrott at Concept 303. Sorry, I'm fluffing my way through this live. Yeah, Andy Parrott at Concept 303 has machined the various parts to George's drawings. We've got those parts, trial fitted them in the car, and again, they've then got to be anodised. So I think they've probably just gone on the latest anodising run. I didn't actually see it go, but I know we've taken another run up to the anodisers that we're now using, both ran anodising. We've just taken that up there late morning this morning, so that'll be another run. We get that back next week, and then we'll have another round of parts to start fitting. So I think that's pretty much Kaiser 2W111 in the background there. Nothing really to report on that other than that we've got to do some more test driving, which is more things to fit into the schedule, but certainly we're really happy. I know Cal touched on it last week, very happy with the rear suspension modification that we've done on that. The new rear dampers seem to be working really well and seem to have solved the problems that we had with the old ones. So we're happy with how that's going. I think we'll move on into the bomb site that is the fabrication zone next door. And as we're passing, nice mugs. If anybody wants a Retropower mug, we've got some nice mugs. We'll wander through here. Hopefully, this will be the last time. I'm hedging my bets a little bit here, but hopefully this will be the last time this area is complete carnage, because this morning I'm going to walk really close to some wet concrete and try and not get jarred to fall into it. Hopefully this will be the last time that this place is a complete tip, because we now have filled our old paint booth pit with concrete. So we've made some steps forward there. Don't look too closely at the troweling on the pit. It needs troweling again. It's still too wet at the minute, so all the concrete specialists out there will be telling me I've done that wrong. Don't worry, it'll be trowelled again yet. It's just too wet at the minute to finish off. So yeah, that'll be finished trowelled later before I go home. And then once that's all dried, we'll be painting floors in here, and we have Gaz's prep area there, new paint booth. That's more or less there now. It's not been a happy journey to get to where we are with it. It's taken far too long and been extremely hard work. And yes, I will say no more. Other than if I have to do another paint booth, I'm going to build it myself. Because the stress and hassle of using somebody else to do it really wasn't worthwhile. So moving on from that, we go on to the Land Cruiser. There's been a bit of a two-pronged approach on this, in that George has been busy on it on the engine side of things, and Tom has been busy on it on the metalwork side of things. On the metal front, Tom's been working on the transmission tunnel. I think we mentioned it last week that we've got off the rock repair finally and onto some of the other bits. Now we are with the running gear update that this car has had, and I'm going to struggle to remember exactly what the transmission is. I think it's an A550F transmission, but I can't actually remember the Toyota nomenclature for it. But the auto gearbox we're using in that, we're using a low car type shifter to operate that. We just like the design of them, they're really well made, we like the low car shifters. So that's what we're using as a shifter in it. So we're making the mounts for that shifter onto the transmission tunnel top, the new tunnel top that, again, if you've seen the previous episodes, you'll have seen Tom making that top. We're making the mount for the low car shifter to go onto that, and then we're making a duplicate mount which will be very similar to the low car mount, because I'm going to hope to use various parts of the low car shifter to make the range change. That's cable operated as well, or will be cable operated as well. And I wanted to try and use low car parts to make the range change so that the levers match and it all looks nice and neat. So that's the plan there. So Tom's been fabricating various pieces to enable all that to happen. Now the tunnel top was just a cladding tunnel top as it was. It was made in 18 gauge steel, may have been 16 gauge in parts, but the bulk of it was 18 gauge steel. Not a sort of mechanical structural part, more of a cover that needs bracing in the areas where the loads from operating the shifter go in. Nothing worse than having a mechanical component that you interact with in a car that flexes while you're using it. And a gear lever being a real case in point. If an automatic transmission shifter flexes around while you operate it, it will feel terrible. So Tom's put some bracing around the inside of that tunnel cover. He's fabricated some sections that go around inside and then welded those in, and then some further bracing, and then made a shaped piece on the top of the tunnel to give us a level plinth to put the two shifter housings onto. That's all done now. And then I think the next move will be, he's got to make some little, Tom's actually off poorly, he's not very well at the moment, I think he's got a stomach bug. But I think the next stage will be making two little tunnels basically into the top of the tunnel and transmission tunnel that will take the grommets for the shifter cables to go through. It will enable them to go through on a nice angle and just all look neat and not let water come in and that sort of thing. So it'll be finishing those sections for the tunnel top, and then I think the next stage after that is working on the seat mountings, because we've got to do a different bench seat in this car to the original. We've got to make the mountings for the front seats. That's where that's at. Last week we touched on George redesigning new cam covers for this in a sort of DFV style-ish. They're not really, but with hints of a DFV feel to the cam covers. The distributor also then got to be covered on the front. It won't be acting as a distributor anymore on this engine because we're using coil on plug, but where that distributor unit is will need covering up. So he's drawn up a housing for that, which we will eventually have machined in billet. He's actually redesigning it now. He wasn't too happy with the first incarnation of it. He's drawing that on CAD, and then he's 3D printed that and done a trial fit. The trial fit works well, but the artistic side of it wasn't quite where he wanted to be, so he's working on that at the moment, making that a bit neater. He's got the filler located, I think we covered that last week, but he's 3D printed a housing to take the oil filler, to hold that in the right location, to give him a datum, so that when he does the final covers, he's got the exact position that the filler needs to feed into. So yeah, George is making good progress on that. So he's been working on other things as well. He's not solely been doing this, but he keeps coming back. This is the meat in the sandwich of his work at the minute, and then the other jobs that he's been doing, like the bits for the Chevette, sort of, where they're filling around the bread around the edges of it. So that's where the Land Cruiser's at. If we move on to Morris, I'm just going to look on my list to make sure I'm not missing too much here. I've actually got to fight my way through piles of junk here because there's just stuff everywhere. In fact, I can stop here because there's a nice example which Jamie probably hasn't got any footage of at the minute, but I'm sure he'll manage to get a bit tomorrow. Stu's just doing the very final tapping and filing on these rear wings. They were very, very close, but they needed a little bit more work. So he's just been doing that, as you can see. You can see all the little marks where he's been tapping it up and then filing it off, tapping it up, filing it off, just getting the final shape dealt with on there. I'm just looking at my list to remember what else. Yeah, there was a little bit of finishing off on the bonnet release. The bonnet lash mechanisms were all finished, but he just got to finish making the handle for the bonnet release mechanism, which is now done. That's all trialled. He's put the cables in, actually finally assembled everything as a mock-up to check that it does all release. It releases evenly, it latches evenly, and it does everything it should do, which after a bit of toing and froing and a bit of grease on things and a bit of filing of sharp edges and generally fettling everything, that all now works, and the full bonnet release mechanism's all good. Then he's also done some aluminium fabrication and fabricated the screen wash tank for the footwell. He'd started doing that. He's now finished all of that off because we were waiting for a couple of parts in order to do that. He's now got the parts, done the welding, that all fits, and that's all done. Yeah, battery tray. He's also finished the fabrication of the battery tray. I think Scott has started that. Stu's finished that off, done the bracketry for that, and done the various fixings on that, and got that all bolted in and done. The lead work Stu's about to start. Jamie's just prompted me. I think he's done a few little bits of lead. I'm just seeing, I can see bits of lead in here, so he's done some somewhere. I'm not quite sure. Yes, he's been doing a bit of lead work around here. But there's quite a lot of lead work to do on the front, there's a bit of lead work to do on the rear wings, there's a bit of lead work to do on various interfaces, there's bits of lead to go back over where there was lead on the original car. So there's still quite a lot of lead work to do. At some point Gaz might be working on that with him. We'll probably have more footage for the next episode of the lead work because there's quite a lot of that to do on this car. We do the lead work before we do the zinc metal spraying, which is a bit of a jeopardy. Introduces a bit of jeopardy because it means that when I'm doing the zinc spraying, I have to be very careful not to overheat any sections of the car with the zinc metal spray gun and melt the lead back out. It's actually very easily done because the zinc metal spray gun absolutely belches heat out. It's a huge quantity of heat comes out of that metal spray gun. It's very easy to melt the lead out, so I have to be very, very careful doing that job. But you don't really want to do the job the other way around either, otherwise you end up, you have to put quite a lot of heat in during the application of the lead, and it's a much slower and more steady operation, and it would be very easy to burn the zinc at that stage, which would be even worse, because then we'd have to re-zinc metal spray it and you'd have jeopardy twice. So we figured that the best way around is to do the lead first and then just be really careful doing the zinc metal spraying, because obviously once the lead work's done, the next stage with this car will be to blast it all, which we're getting pretty close to now, and then zinc metal spray it. So that's going to be coming up very soon. I know another little job that Stu was actually doing earlier was just finishing off a couple of parts to do with the handbrake mechanism as well. I know that because he was asking me something about it, so I don't know if we've got footage of that, but I do know that he's been doing a little bit on the handbrake mechanism as well and just finalising that. So we are pretty much, I keep saying this after week, but we are pretty much getting there. There's a lot of body finessing now that you'll probably see on the next episode. Will be a lot of tapping and filing, and a lot of lead and filing. So lots of filing going on and lots of tap in the background. And yeah, that's where we're at with that. And then I'll do a little spin round and we'll go past the dumper, which is the last time we're hiring a dumper for a while now. There's Rich. Rich is doing some cement finishing down here. He's troweling off all the, we've done the final fill of concrete around the paint booth. So Rich is down here just doing the final troweling off and trying to tidy up all the edges and make it all look reasonable and give us a bit of a fillet around all the booth. Rich is multitasking construction, man. Rich has been, basically since June, Rich has been a very busy man working with me on all the civil engineering side of things, and it's been quite a journey, but we've got a hell of a lot done. So it's been, I have to say, it's been a pleasant journey working with him on it all. It's been a lot of work, and we'll both be quite glad to get back onto cars. And then in here we have the CV8 with Gaz and Steve. They've been doing the rough prep, trying to take the waviness out of the old fiberglass panels. The body, at the moment the plan, and I think that will be the case, it depends a little bit on finances, but certainly the current plan is that the main body tub will be carbon, but the lift-off panels we're going to stick with the fiberglass. Principally because the mould tool to make the front section, which is arguably the heaviest section and probably the section you would most want to make from carbon in addition to the main tub, is going to be an incredibly expensive mould tool to make. So it's not the final decision. We still need to do all the prep work anyway on all these parts to get the finish good enough, even if we were going to make the tooling for them to do them in carbon. But at the moment it's looking like we're going to do those, we're going to keep the fiberglass on those just because it will be a pretty expensive operation to do those in carbon fibre. We have no choice with the main tub really. With the changes we've got to make to that tub, it does make sense to do it in carbon, and it has some damage from previous crash repair work that's been done badly. So at that point, and we're doing the glass roof, and we need to make, with all the changes, it just makes sense to do that in carbon. But the other parts, I think we are pretty much concluded we're staying with the fiberglass on the other parts. So yeah, Gaz and Steve are working on getting the panels on, getting the alignments again, which is quite a repetitive task, and then getting things to be repeatable in their alignment. It's actually quite, if one Googles pictures of CV8s and looks at panel gaps, you see quite a horror show. They were pretty terrible in terms of panel alignment from the factory. So a huge number of improvements need to be made in terms of how everything aligns and repeatability of alignment. A lot of the production sort of solutions to panel alignment seem to have been packing things with washers and copious amounts of sort of a mixture of hessian and bitumen, neither of which are solutions we really want to be doing. So we're going to try and make, as much as we can, it's certainly not going to be perfect, but as much as we can, try and make the panels repeatable in their fixing positions so that when we come to assemble it all for the final time, we've got a reasonable fighting chance of getting the gaps somewhere near. So yeah, that's the beginning of the painful road of getting all that lot organised, and then in the next few weeks we'll be also doing the work on the main tub, where we're widening the haunches of the car over the rear wheel arches a little. We're modifying the front and rear window apertures so that we can put bonded in glass in there rather than the sealed in glass, rather than the removable sealed glass. And also we're in the background with all this, there's also some work being done by Alistair Pure at A2P2 to make the tool. You may recall from quite a long time ago, we scanned another car, a car that didn't have a sunroof, and using the scan data we're creating a tool which we can use to create the aperture shape on this car, on the tool body, which is what this body will be. We'll create the aperture shape on the tool body, this body, which will then be able to take the carbon, make the carbon mould from that tool body, and the piece that Alistair Pugh is machining in tooling board, MDF, I'm not sure which he's using, but basically it'll be a big heavy tool that was made to create that register on the body, so that we know that when we have the glass roof made, because this is having a auto darkening, LCD darkening, full glass panoramic roof made for it, this car, when we make that roof we know that will exactly fit the recess in the body, because both of them will be done from the same CAD data. So long load of waffle there, but basically we've got to make sure that fits, because as one can imagine, a one-off glass roof is not cheap. So we need to make the recess the correct shape so that will fit and will bond in correctly. So that's all the journey this is about to go along, but at the moment we're just trying to make panels fit reasonably well, trying to get them less wavy and trying to get all the surfaces to a condition that we're happy with, and then also modify the body in all the areas where, I mean, again, going back, the rear valance, for example, we've made a steel rear valance, that's all got to be blended in fiberglass to the rest of the body now, so we can get a smooth shape off that and we can blend that into the widened quarters, etc, etc. So yeah, there'll be quite a journey over the next few weeks, and this car's going to be creating plenty of dust in the new prep area. But yeah, as you can see, the new prep area is also nearly ready. A little bit more to go, curtain to go on, a few more bits to do, but the car now has a home. We're on the final straight with things having homes here, and every bit of the workshop being as it should be. And on that note, I think hopefully next week should be a tidier, less bomb site of a workshop this side. So until next time, see you again. hope you enjoyed this little tour of the place, and yeah, keep watching.